Hi, we are Access Rock. Today we have the pleasure to talk to Danko Jones. Hey. So you got something to say?
That is the title of my book. I guess it's right here. It's on Feral House. It's called I've Got Something to Say, and it's just a compilation of various articles I've written for rock magazines. Well, at the time of putting it together, 10 years, but now it's been out for a year, and it took 2 years to put together, so 13 years ago.
Nice. We're at Soundpollution.
Yeah.
You just had a kind of like a meet and greet. You read from the book. You signed
Yeah,
it.
I call it a book
Kind
talk.
of a book
Yeah,
talk.
yeah. I've done several for the book since it came out last June. So, yeah.
Is it still great to do this? Or
Yeah,
is it getting a
absolutely.
bit?
No, I enjoy it. I mean, I wouldn't have, first of all, I wouldn't have written the articles if I, and then included in the book if I didn't feel that I was completely behind it. So reading it and knowing that people are hearing it makes me feel good. So,
I was actually when I was told I could do this interview,
ah,
I was looking for this as a as an audiobook. Have you
uh,
considered doing that?
yeah, we've considered it. I've actually recorded it, but it's not available in audio form yet.
Okay.
So
So you need to wait a minute. It's
it's
kind of hard
complicated.
to.
It's complicated. It's not as easy as it sounds to just put it out on audio. As easy as it is to record, it's not easy to put it out. So
No.
a lot of complicated things behind the scenes.
Yes. You do a lot. When I was trying to kind of like get a grip of you, I was like 2 podcasts, 4 Instagrams account,
Mhm.
book, and you record.
Sure, it's not a lot at all. It's
Hmm?
quite easy. When you're on tour, there's a lot of time during the day to do nothing. Some people uh, use it for various reasons. Sometimes it gets them in trouble. So I usually just sit waiting to play the show. It's really boring, and so boredom really was the catalyst for writing for magazines, doing my podcast. So when I'm at home, I kind of try and stockpile conversations that while I'm on tour, I will edit. And that's the part that takes the longest. So, I mean,
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Like the intros to every podcast, does that take more time than
um,
the podcast?
yeah, it takes, well, they're usually 1,000 word essays. So, that can last anywhere between 5 to 8 minutes. And I do it for every episode of the podcast. Uh, That's why, one of the reasons why I don't write for a lot of magazines anymore, too, because I've kind of put all my time and energy towards the podcast, editing it, writing the intro, recording the intro, and of course recording the chats, tracking down people who will do it, and scheduling when. That all takes time, but I do it all on the road because there's just nothing else to do when you're out on the road besides playing the show, and the show doesn't last 24 hours, so there's a lot of time in between, and so I do the podcast or write an article. I only have 2 deadlines a month now, so it's quite easy to do everything. It's not a lot of work at all. It just seems like it because you take it all in at once, but it's actually spread over a long period of time and with a lot of time on my hands.
Of course. it's
Yeah,
just it's just when you look at it, it looks like a
sure,
lot.
yeah, but I mean, I think a lot of people have way busier lives than I do. I just save it for when I got nothing else to do. When I'm at home, I mean, I'm pretty busy myself, so I don't have
Yeah,
time
how's
to.
Ralph?
Ralph is good. Thanks for asking. Ralph got attacked by another. Ralph is my dog at home, and he got attacked while out on a walk by a dog who wasn't muzzled. Which it happens. They're
Mm,
dogs, but the owner ran away, which I
mm.
thought was very irresponsible. So there is a police report out for
Did you find
the
her?
owner. I found her,
Oh,
but she ran away again.
really?
Yes,
But that's
crazy.
wow.
Yeah,
What does the
exactly.
law say in Canada? Is it like
Well, what can I do? I mean, uh, I was with Ralph when I saw her, and what do you do? She saw Ralph and she ran away with her
okay.
dog. Like everything matched the description,
Mm,
and everything. So
Are you in Canada? Are you responsible for what your dog does all the
Yes.
time?
Yes, and that's why you have to muzzle the dog. You have
Yeah.
to. There's actually a regional crackdown in Toronto for dog owners where cops were going after people who hadn't registered their dogs. So they're just going up
Ah,
to people and seeing if they had
like
all the
illegal
tags.
dogs.
Yeah, people don't register their dogs when they get it, and there's
Okay.
lots of puppy mills and stuff like that. And just real.
That's actually good.
The
We don't
more,
do
the
that.
more, the more time you spend in this area, and I've only recently done it, is you really find out because Ralph is a rescue dog. You find out how many dogs get abused and how many people who own dogs are so irresponsible. I never really, I never was in this world fully like I am now. So I'm really surprised at people. So yeah, so that's just how it is.
I hope you find her.
I do too. And when we do, she owes me $300.
300.
Yeah. Well,
Is that for
the
the vet?
care, yeah, when we took him to the veterinarian emergency. Luckily in Toronto there's a 24-hour what do you call it, walk-in clinic or something. And we were lucky that when we went it wasn't busy, so Ralph was able to be seen very quickly. We'd heard stories where that place, sometimes you have to wait hours, so we were lucky in that sense.
But is that like? Sorry, I'm just very curious about dogs. I love dogs. Is it? Do you have insurance on dogs? Do you or anything like that? Yeah,
yes,
you do as well.
Yeah, there's dog insurance. Well, there's insurance on Ralph for sure. Yeah, yeah.
Of course. Good.
And he's registered.
What does he do right now? Is he just?
Well, because he's a rescue dog, he's very what do you say? Nervous. He's a nervous, skittish dog around other dogs, people he really likes, and we were, getting him to the point where he was starting to trust other dogs, and then the attack happened. So back to zero, probably even beyond that, because Ralph didn't strike me as a dog who was abused, like physically abused. I think, piecing it together and kind of seeing his behavior, observing his behavior, it just seemed like he ran away or he got lost.
Oh, okay. So maybe someone.
Also, it doesn't seem like the previous owner, because he was housebroken, like he was toilet trained and everything, but it just didn't seem like they played with him very much. He has problems with fetch. He doesn't know what the concept of fetch is. So there's little things like that kind of, you realize that, he's a rescue dog. And I think he was out on the street for a while, because there's things he does that I think street dogs do, like hide his food. And always. Constantly going, what are you doing? Like, I'm not going to eat your food. No one is going to take your food.
You can't be sure.
But it's been months, so I understand like the first few weeks, but
it can take some
I think he's gotten used to the fact that he's getting food regularly, so he's becoming more comfortable. So that's nice.
Nice. So, record. Do you talk about music? Well, how do you talk about music?
How? What do you mean? I don't understand. Sorry.
Well,
how?
I find it difficult to describe music.
Oh, I mean, the literal description of music is hard.
Words?
No, it's more of an overview of a band and their biography or their story or their albums, and what your impression is. Does it move you, or do you like it or not? And why? I like it because it reminds me of this, or this is a good riff, or whatever. That's basically how I talk about specific albums. But generally speaking, and this is really speaking generally about bands, for example, the book opens with an article on Thin Lizzy, and it doesn't talk about specific albums or specific songs. It talks about my relationship with Thin Lizzy and how initially I never really understood them, and then I turned a corner and I did. So that's how it is.
Kind of like your ears grew into them.
Yeah, I mean, it took me a while, even though I'm from Canada, it took me a while to understand Neil Young, you know, and when I was a kid and I'd hear Neil Young, I'd be like, that guy can't even sing. And then when I, you know, kind of got a little older, I got it, you know. But when I was a teenager and I was just listening to thrash metal and punk rock, it's like, what the fuck? This guy can't sing in key, you know. And then I kind of graduated from high school and I understood it. And then I really got into Neil Young. So, yeah.
How would you describe your new record?
Our new record is called Love Supreme, and it's pretty much 11 slabs of rock. You know, we're not trying to rewrite anything from our last record or previous albums. It's just we're a hard rock band, so we're always going to put out a hard rock record. So that's what a Love Supreme is.
I was gonna kind of
Rock Supreme. Sorry, not
Yep.
Love Supreme.
Well, I didn't want to correct you. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's okay. Yeah, I get it. I slipped
Did
into
I get that wrong? No, I didn't.
No,
Yeah,
no,
no.
you didn't. Well, Rock Supreme, I mean, it's lifted from Love Supreme by John Coltrane. So we deliberately took that title and made it our own. So that's how it goes.
Yes. I was gonna just kind of like do something funny here and ask you, how do you write your music? And then I was hoping you were gonna go like, oh my God, she didn't read my book. But I
no,
did.
It's not about the process. No, no.
Because you specifically list this as one of the worst questions ever.
Right? Yeah, you did read it. But I will still answer your question as if I didn't write that article. And even doing this press tour, I've been asked a couple of the questions that I get asked all the time, and I'll answer it. I don't mind, but it is just I'm fascinated why people are.
But you've already written in here how you do it. You should say, just read the book. Say how you write.
Not really. No, I mean I come up with a bunch of riffs, bring it to rehearsal, and then we work on the ideas. If any of the riffs catch the guy's ears, that's about it. That is the Cole's Notes version of how we write songs.
Yeah. Because I was gonna follow up with, but then you asked Ricky Warwick in your pod how they write their music.
Did I? I don't know if I
yes,
did.
You did.
I don't know what I think it was only because they're a special band in the sense that they used to call themselves Thin Lizzy, and then in order to put out an album of new material, they changed their name, and so that's a different situation where you're talking about a band that is more or less living in the shadow of an immense iconic band. And it's interesting to see their approach and their process as opposed to us where we're the same band. We're just putting out a new record, so that it's not that terribly interesting. It doesn't differ from any other band in the world, and there's thousands and millions of bands. But in the case of Black Star Riders, it is interesting because you're talking about a guy who was in Thin Lizzy, performing under the name Thin Lizzy, and then now they're going to write new material. They reached a crossroads whether they should continue with the new material calling themselves Thin Lizzy or rename themselves so they can have the freedom to not live in the shadow of Phil Lynott. But at the same time, that's kind of what they're known for. So it was an interest. That was probably the only reason why I asked Ricky that, because that situation is kind of special. More than if Dragon was sitting here and I go, well, he gets asked, well, how do you write songs? It's no offense, but it's not as interesting as Black Star Riders writing songs because same with us. Backyard Babies and Us, it would be the same kind of answer. Like, I don't know, we just write songs. We've never had to go to that crossroads.
Would be like if you joined Kiss.
Well, no, I think. Well, no, it's just that Phil's.
Well, Ricky said he was a big fan.
Yeah, well, Phil's dead, and Phil was the band, and he's the he's the front person, and he's the face of Thin Lizzy. And with him and the voice, and with him being dead, how are you going to write a whole bunch of new songs with that looming over your head? So the only way they could really do it and be okay with it and have everyone else accept it is if they did change their name, which was the right thing to do. They're 3 albums in. They just finished recording their 4th one, and I think they've done a really good job at creating this new entity and forging a new storyline. And they're succeeding, and Ricky's doing a great job. Yes, that's a special situation rather than like, how we write songs, or how a band like the Backyard Babies write songs, or the Super Suckers, or Nashville, any of those bands. It's kind of, I think, I don't know, it's not as interesting a story, a backstory, than Black Star Riders and their story.
Depends if you actually did something new. That would be interesting for fans, anyway.
Yeah, but we've always said we just write hard rock.
Yeah, I know, albums. But it was like if you actually did something like, we mixed it up this time.
Sure,
then it would
I suppose.
Nice
I suppose.
No.
Maybe, but I'll never know, because we're never gonna do something where we mix it up.
No. You just want to play rock and roll and just have a
good
time, right?
Yeah, it's like there's no desire in me to experiment or try something new. I can get that by listening to other bands do it. But for us, we kind of know what we are, and we know what we sound like. And we follow a tradition that was started or done by bands like Motorhead and the Ramones and Slayer and AC/DC. These are bands that pretty much stuck to their story from beginning to end. And, when they put out an album, guaranteed that the next album was going to be another similar sounding record. And, you like some better than others, but it's pretty much, whatever it is that you think you know them for, they always stuck to their story. There's Slayer records that you might like better than others, but there's no denying the ones that you don't like are also very similar sounding to the ones you do. And so that's basically, we took from that tradition, and pretty much we stuck to it. There's been small variations over the years, but pretty much it's been hard rock music from beginning to end.
It's kind of like it's always dance friendly. I thought Dance latest single now, it's more like punk rock disco.
Well, that's your tag.
I don't know. I just couldn't stop thinking about Shame
mm-hmm.
With I don't. Tina Turner did it, for instance. It's a disco song.
Okay.
It just kind of made me think of it, and then you put out the video with the girls dancing.
I never took like from really that dancing. Tina Turner.
No. Of course not. That wasn't. No.
No, but maybe it was just a nice happenstance. But I don't know. I never really thought of it as a punk rock dancing. It's a riff that's kind of taken from a ZZ Top song, and that's the main riff. The opening riff is very reminiscent of Nasty Dogs Funky Kings by ZZ Top. And it's not even my favorite Top song, but it's a song that I've plundered in the past for other songs. But that song somehow has resonated with me when I'm writing riffs. But past that, there's really nothing too deliberate or anything other than we just wrote a song that sounded good to our ears, and it's up to the listener to interpret or piece together what it is for them. So.
What's more important, to be known by name or by music? Because I was kind of like trying to casually slip by to my brother that I was going to talk to today,
mm-hmm.
and he was like, "Oh, I don't know who that is. He's
mm-hmm.
not a hard rock dude." So then I played 2 of your songs. I was like, yeah, I know that. So is that a better compliment? Of course, you'd rather be known for both.
Right. I hear what you mean. That's hard to say. I mean, I'm glad that he knows the song, so it's getting out there. Um, yeah, I don't know.
Isn't
You know,
that kind of like, because I was like, oh, maybe this isn't something I should say, but then it's like, but you want your music to stick, right?
yeah, absolutely. I
Like
mean,
people remember it.
sure, we all know songs by bands where we know the song, but we can't remember the name of the band. Um, I don't really have an opinion on that. I mean, our job, what I would ideally like is for people to know the songs, but then come to the shows. And the only way you can come to the show is if you know whose song it is.
Mm.
So the fact that he can't identify who is singing the song means that he'll never come to a show of ours, and that song in his head will just remain in limbo. Whereas someone who knows the name of the band can kind of sort of start to identify and piece together who we are and what we sound like. So maybe I think it's more important to know the name of the band just so you can grasp at putting it together and decide whether you like it or not.
If you had to choose, never listen to music again, never play music, or never sing music?
I would choose to never. No, let's play it. I guess I wouldn't like to listen to it because I was listening to it before I started playing it, and singing it is the first thing I would let go because it's a nightmare trying to be a singer and tour in a rock band. It's very hard. It's harder than people even know, and it's harder than people in bands who don't sing know. Every singer who's ever gone on tour for over a month knows. Anyone who hasn't doesn't know, and it has to be over a month. If it's less than a month, you don't know. Even if you're a singer, you don't know. And that's multiple shows per week, like 5 shows and up per week. If you've never done that, then you don't really know how hard it is to be a singer in a band. And it's not hard in the sense that it's physically tough, mentally tough. It's just it's a way of just trying to preserve your voice, and it's almost impossible. And over the years, I've been able to figure out how to just squeak by, and by the end of the tour, I'm done. And so, yeah, it's something that no one talks about because only a small percentage of people in the world have ever done it.
Mm.
And even a smaller percentage of that. You take all the bands in the world, and how many of them have actually sung every day for over a month?
I know people talk about you put a spoon of oil before you sing and stuff like that. Nothing like that.
No, that's ridiculous. But you just, I don't know. You just have to play mental gymnastics with yourself and pray to God that you have your voice by the end of the tour, and also leading up to the tour that you're healthy enough to keep going. And
no sharing of chips.
You can be as careful and protective as you want, but it doesn't matter. There's going to be some element that's going to try and screw with what you do, and then so that destabilizes how much. Like for me, luckily, I only have fun on tour when I'm playing. So the audience actually does see me have fun. I'm not faking it at all. And I'm happy to do the show and play the songs, but I'm also extra happy that I was able to play the show and able to sing the songs. I can play guitar. Every guitarist can play till only the fact that they don't have any hands will stop them. But even if they have a fever, if they're coughing, if they're sick, they could still get through the show without anyone really figuring it out. But as a singer, people will know immediately, and that is tough. So
have you canceled shows?
Only in 2002 did we cancel. 2002, I think in 2002 I got sick, where we canceled, and then in 2015 I lost my voice for a few shows. So, but I still finished the tour, and that was tough. But you know, it happens. It's going to happen. We've been around for 23 years, and I can cite you two instances. So I've been lucky enough in that sense. But you know, that's the reason why when I'm on stage, I'm really happy to play. Not just because I'm getting the opportunity to play. That would be enough. But the fact that I'm like, I can do this tonight. Every night that I do that, I feel great. And every morning I wake up and I go, I could play tonight. I feel good. So that is definitely something over every singer's head. And the only reason why I know this and I can speak for all singers is because every singer I know worth their fucking weight we've conferred about this, you know, like we've talked about it. And yeah, it always ends up with like, nobody knows, nobody understands. So it's an interesting little club that we have, you know, and a lot of people say singers are filled with ego, and they are, but they're also filled with a lot of ego, and they're quiet and maybe distant because of all that. I feel, you know, at least some of the ones who are more grounded. There's obviously the ones that are completely got their head in the clouds and think they're entitled, and they think the world revolves around them. Those are the ones you avoid. But a lot of singers and bands just come off as, I think, arrogant because they're just trying to fucking stay healthy and stay away from everyone.
Also a bit like reading this book, listening to your podcasts, you know, just checking through your Instagram. I was like, oh yeah, well, I know Danko Jones. Yeah, of course I do. So then people come up to you as a singer and they kind of like think they know you.
Sure, it happens all the time.
So strange? Isn't that also kind of like a point of, well,
yeah, it's strange, but it's happened for so long. I mean, I'm kind of used to it when people assume they know you. But that's fine. I don't mind. That means that there's also a certain element where we do probably share common interests. Yeah. So if anything, it's common ground to strike up a conversation. But I don't mind it. So yeah, I mean, you asked me about Ralph. I'm like, oh yeah, I did post a picture about Ralph. And that's something I didn't know if I should or not. But I thought it was the idea of me posing with my dog was just so funny to me, because I've never done that before.
No, you're very private.
Yeah, so when I did it, I thought I got a little kick out of it, and yeah, I got a good response. It's not as if I don't have a dog, you know. And when I posted about Ralph getting attacked, I did that out of, like, I was fucking angry, and it was just like a first response thing to do. I was furious. So yeah, I mean, whatever. And the fact that, you know, people ask me about Ralph doesn't bother me at all. I kind of like it.
Sweden, you're playing this summer?
Yeah, we're playing Sweden a lot this summer. We're playing Gröna Lund and Sweden Rock, Liseberg. So yeah, we're doing a lot of it in Sweden. Thank God, because last summer I don't think we did too many festivals. So it's nice to, you know, come back and do some. And we like all those places to play. We've played them before, and it's great to play them again. So
I was actually, when they posted, Gröna Lund posted about you playing, I was like, but he plays every summer. No, we played in my head.
Yeah. 2011 we played, and then I think we played in either 2014 or 15. So maybe every 4 years we play Gröna Lund.
I don't know where I got that.
Yeah. Well, it just seems like we're always here. We're here a bit. I mean, we're always touring Europe. So maybe that's why. We've been around we've been touring Sweden. The first time we came here was in 2001. And so that's 18 years ago this June. So that has been a long time. So
your band can drink and drive in Sweden.
What do you mean?
It's more than 18 years.
Oh, I see what you mean. You can drink and drive in Sweden?
Yeah. When you're 18.
You can't drive. I wouldn't air that.
Not drink and drive.
No.
Oh, Jesus, that's crazy.
But you can drink.
Oh, that was hilarious.
Yeah, I don't think you can drink and drive anywhere, actually. But you can. I'm aware that the drinking age in Sweden is 18. Yes. But I don't think you can drink and drive anywhere.
That was the best. Speaking of drinking, you're not a big drinker. You don't party. Still not.
Well, if party is synonymous with drinking, then no, I don't party.
No.
It's funny how that's supposed to be synonymous with it, but
rock and roll band, stuff like that.
Wow, here's my definition of rock and roll is all about freedom. And if I got to follow a rule book, I don't really think rock and roll is what it purports to be. So that's not my definition of rock and roll. My definition of rock and roll is freedom. And freedom means doing whatever the fuck you want to do, which is really, what punk rock reminded rock and roll that it was. And that's why punk rock is so fractured and there's a myriad of interpretations of punk rock. So my interpretation of rock and roll falls more in line with punk rock. So yeah, I don't have tattoos, and I don't have long hair, and I don't drink, and I don't do a lot of other things that I think a lot of people relate to rock and roll. But that doesn't, I feel in my world, doesn't make me any less of a rocker. And when I find people go, well, you don't do this, you don't do that, but you call yourself a rock and roller, I would question their membership in the rock and roll club more than mine. So yeah, and plus, I've been in this band for 23 years, playing it, putting out records. I think I've earned my place to do whatever the fuck I want. And if that means not drinking, then it's pretty much not drinking. So I have no problems with, I'm not gonna, pretend to drink if I don't want to, and or wear leather pants when I don't want to,
no.
or whatever. And when I meet someone like Lemmy, who basically accepted anybody at face value and made no judgment on whatever it is that they dressed or how they looked or whatever, it reassures me of that. And same with the Backyard Babies. We toured with the Backyard Babies, and they never forced me to do anything. They never forced me to drink. They never asked me to change. They always just took me at face value. I presented myself the way I'm talking to you. So that's the mark of, I feel, real rockers. Anyone who tries to call me on any sort of rules that rock and roll is supposed to have, then I automatically reject them as a rocker.
Shouldn't that be spread more widely? Because a lot of people suffer from mental illness in this business.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like Prodigy Keith died yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like a lot of people are not feeling good in the industry. Shouldn't that kind of
Sorry, you're making a leap here from what I was talking about.
No, but it's more like
we're talking about depression
should be
now?
more spread.
What I just said.
More widely spread, yes.
Well, I've written about it. What more can I do? I could shout it from the mountaintops, but maybe only 2 people are at the bottom of the hill. So the best I can do is just be myself and put myself out there. I'm not in front of any cameras pretending I'm drinking Jack Daniels.
No.
Never have. So I can only be myself, and I'm not going to also tell anybody what to do or how to be as well. I'm just going to be who I am. But when I am confronted and when someone tries to call me on anything, well, then I feel the need to, tell them how I feel. So that's all. But other than that, to each his own. But the leap you made from, Keith Flint of Prodigy, and most recently a lot of people like Linkin Park, Chris Cornell, Anthony Bourdain. I understand that.
I'm thinking how the industry works and how we view our rock stars.
Sure, but that's a way bigger project to handle than only I can do. what I do is I am myself. I present myself the way I am, and if people like that, or they use it as something to think about, then I guess I've kind of done my part. But I'm not gonna put myself on a soapbox and try to preach how I feel rock and roll should be, because that also is, I'll be guilty of what I don't like. So to each his own. But I will, if back to Against the Corner, start to lecture people on it. But that's only if I feel like I'm being attacked. You know. So.
Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you.
Access Rock.
Nice talking to you.
Great
it was a fun discussion. Yes, thanks for plugging the book.
Good luck with your record.
Thank you. A Rock Supreme.
26th of April.
Yeah.
A Rock Supreme, not a Love Supreme.
Did I say Love Supreme again? Jesus.